Hello and welcome to another edition of Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster. I'm the host of the program, and today while we're taping we have a cold, wintry type day. So we have snow and it's about 23 degrees, but I can tell you it's warm here in the studio. I've even decided to dress down in contrast to my guest who I have today. And let me get right to the subject matter we're going to be chatting about. Over the past several months, we've had a process which took place in Stoughton for the recall of Board of Selectmen. And as you know, today is December 13th, but on December 5th, I believe was the date, Tuesday, December 5th, an election was held here in Stoughton, and 3 new selectmen were elected. I am here today with the newly elected Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Michael Sullivan. And just for all of the persons who will think that this was something contrived after the election, Michael and I spoke on November 9th. And in this world of making sure that you don't have fake news, I wanted to make sure that I looked at the email so that if anyone challenged that, I could confirm it. So on November 9th, Michael and I spoke, and I said, fine, we'll do a program after the election. No matter what the results are, we want to talk about it. You're a selectman, you're going to be there. You're going to have to serve with whoever is elected, and that's what has occurred. But today, I want you to welcome the newly elected Vice Chairman of the Board of Selectmen here in Stoughton, Michael Sullivan. Michael, welcome to the show.
Joe, thanks for having me on today, and to all the workers here at SMAC, thank you guys for the past few weeks and months that you guys have worked on the election coverage and results. You guys have done a fantastic job keeping the residents of Stoughton sort of up to date on the news and the ins and outs of the recall election. So thank you guys.
Well, Michael, I can recall you and I first met if the event that I believe it was the Stoughton Chamber of Commerce. You came up to me and you said, Michael Sullivan, I think I'm going to be I'm thinking about running for the Board of Selectmen. Here's my card. I said, fine, good luck to you, and that was our chance meeting at that event.
Sure.
You walked off, I went to my table, you went to your table.
Surprised you didn't talk me out of running at that time.
Oh, in terms of, well, see, we need good people to run for office, because my attitude is I'm not running for anything but cover. That's the only thing that I'm going to do. And then the next opportunity was watching you during the election cycle for your successful run and being elected in April. And if my recollection serves me correctly, you topped the ticket with the number of persons. You ran in a very effective campaign, one of the most effective campaigns that I've seen run here by anyone in Stoughton, and you came on the board. And you came on the board, I believe that at that time, I believe Sousa was also elected at the time when you came on the board. And in fact, I interviewed all of you on the program prior to the election. So here we are. We wanted to talk about several things, and here's some of the topics I like to discuss. One, I like to get a sense of how you feel about with the newly elected board, how things are. I want to talk a little bit about, because one of the things we talked about, no matter what the outcome was going to be, about the healing process, because as I read some of the articles in the Penny Saver and elsewhere, the newly elected persons are trying to be magnanimous and to reach out and thank the persons who previously sat, but I don't see that coming back on the other side, so I don't know what sense you're getting. And then lastly, we're going to get into a number of the elephant issues that are in the room. So why don't you start telling me about how you now feel with the new composition of the board?
Sure. Well, I'm very excited, with the results of the recall election. I'm excited to serve with Rick, Steve, and Christine. All three of them bring really just a great wealth of knowledge to the board. You look at, Rick Hill and Steve Cavey, their background in finance, they're just going to be able to add so much expertise on the budgeting process. I take a look at the work that Rick and Christine have been able to do on the high school building committee. They're going to be able to add that element to our board. And they're just they're all three of them. They're very professional. They handle themselves very well. We're able to have respectful dialogue so far at our meetings that we've had, and I think it's going to change the dynamic of the board, and I'm hoping these next few months provide an opportunity for us to really get to work. I said this at our first meeting the other night. The best way the town can move forward from this and sort of begin the healing process is for the Board of Selectmen to roll up their sleeves and get to work and show that we are working for the best interests of all of the residents. A few of the things that we're constantly hearing is that folks are concerned about the way that their tax dollars are spent. Folks are concerned about the downtown. That's sort of the one big issue that most citizens want the Board of Selectmen to be focusing on. And so that's something that we're going to have to roll up our sleeves, and the new board, we're going to have to show some progress. And I'm looking forward to getting to work with those new individuals.
Well, as one who has been watching the politics here in Boston, I always think about Boston, I always say that in terms of Stoughton. I've been here now, it'll be 20 years next June. I will say that as far as the total composition of the board, credential-wise and having town involvement, this board is the strongest in those respects that I've seen over my 20 years of observing here in Stoughton. And I think that will bode well for some of the issues you want to speak to. One thing I'll put on the table is we've had, at various times, we've had fairly good interaction and relationships with the legislature on issues that affected us, and I don't know to what extent that was done because I didn't follow the previous board that closely. It was hard to do that. What is your sense about how you're going to interact with the legislature? Because some of that downtown renovations and things that you want to do is going to require support from our delegation. So what's the relationships you're going to have with our Senator Timilty and with our two representatives?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's one thing that Selectman O'Regan and myself we've sort of been working on these past few months. We've worked closely with Representative Kafka's office, and they're working on including in the most recent bond bill. It's passed the House. It's still awaiting approval for the Senate and signing off from the governor. But they've been able to reduce the price, the acquisition of the historic depot, down to $1 in the most recent bond bill. And that's something that came about after Selectman O'Regan and myself and the previous town manager, Michael Hartman. We sat down with some of our representative delegation, and this is something that we worked on to help the town, and I'm hoping that we have those relationships in place. We already work great with Rep. Kafka's staff, and Senator Timilty's reached out to all of us, and he's been a tremendous asset already. And the most important thing is just making sure that the communication is there. And after the recall election, that was something that was also stressed to us from the other side. They want to see communication increased from those those offices. They want to make sure that we're increasing that. So I think it's something that we can improve, but I think that it's we already have some strong foundations in place to work on.
Well, that's great, and I'm hopeful that you will be successful. As you know, that effort was had been initiated previously to try to get it for $1, and that
Yeah.
was rebuffed at that time. So hopefully, second time around, hopefully this will be the time when we get the
It's difficult because the MBTA obviously, they don't want to just give up their assets.
Oh, that's right.
And so they've been pushing over the past few years to get a sizable return for that, not only the building, but the entire parcel, which includes, I think it's 30 to 35 parking spots.
30-something parking spaces that are in
Yeah.
there, and so well, good luck. I mean,
Thank
I just want to be so that one won't say that you have failed if that doesn't occur. That's a difficult issue. There are forces working against that happening, which on two accounts, which I'm aware of. One, that was what was done for the arena over there on 139. That building was for $1.
Yes.
So good luck if it happens.
Thank you.
But we couldn't get out of today without talking about the issue. There's now a new board. You had with the last board, there was an interim town manager that was appointed. There was questions about the process of the appointment. And now we have Stephen Astis in as the interim town manager with a contract that expires at the end of this month, December 31st. So talk to the viewing audience as to what is, if not the board's thinking, as I don't know if you've had a chance to discuss it, your own personal thinking about what will happen going forward.
Sure. So Steve's currently serving as the interim town manager. Like you said, his contract expires the end of this month. So at tonight's meeting, today's the 13th, so we have a meeting tonight, and I don't want to speak for the entire board, but what I'm hoping is going to happen at tonight's meeting is we're going to approve an internal posting. So basically, current employees who are either assistant department heads, or Mr. Anastos himself, who's serving as manager, they'll have an opportunity to apply to serve as the interim town manager post December 31st, once his contract expires. So we'll have that opportunity. We'll have open, transparent interviews sometime at the end of this month for anybody that's interested in applying that are those current employees. And then concurrently, we're going to be hopefully at tonight's meeting passing an RFP, a request for proposals, to bring on board a search firm to prepare a search for a long-term town manager, a permanent town manager. These firms, they come in, they vet candidates, they do the background searches, they put together a profile on the community, what the strengths and weaknesses are of those of the community for managers to know, when they're coming in. And then we'll put together a screening committee made up of citizens, employees, volunteers in our town government, who will screen those applicants and hopefully come up with a solid recommendation for the board. And all of this will be done open, transparent. It'll be done for the public to view. And I know that was one of the biggest issues with why this recall happened in the first place. It was the hiring of Stephen. It was done sort of. It was almost done haphazardly and in some ways unethical, not giving folks the opportunity to review his credentials, not giving me the opportunity to even meet the guy before we were forced to vote on a contract. So, whatever direction this board takes, and I don't want to speak for the whole board, but whatever direction we take, it's going to be in the public arena, it's going to be open, it's going to be transparent, and at the end of the day, I think it's going to be it's going to give residents and taxpayers the assurance that their tax dollars are being spent wisely, and that we're not just doling out contracts without a process and without an open, transparent process. So.
Well, you've been magnanimous, but I have to send a message to my former selectman, David Souza, who had indicated that I was going to become the interim town manager. So I just want to say, David Souza, you're just not correct. That was not in the cards. So since you said it publicly, I just want to.
Sorry, Joe, you're not in the running.
That's right. And so therefore, I just want to make sure we keep the record straight.
Yeah, and there were, There were a lot of things said in this past recall election that sort of, there were rumors, there were untruths, there were things that went unchallenged. One rumor that flew months ago was that, if the recall passes, the new Board of Selectmen is going to get rid of the chief of police. And something, that's just such a ridiculous rumor. And as soon as I heard that, I reached out to the chief and told her that, she has my full confidence. She has, from what I can gather, the entire board's full confidence. We're not looking to make any changes in that position. We've heard that we're looking to bring back Mike Hartman, which is just a ridiculous thing to happen at this point. I mean, doing something like that, the town's divided. We're not looking to further that divide. It's time that the town moved on and really started that process for a new long-term town manager who's sort of separated from the politics of these past few years and who can really just move the town forward and not keep fighting yesterday's battles, which is something that I've been seeing since I became a selectman in April. I'm a little surprised at some of the battles that have been surfacing or been fighting over the past 5 to 10 years that just keep resurfacing. It's time we put that aside. It's time to move on.
Let me raise at least 2 issues that have always been something of concern to me. Mm-hmm. One is our governing process through the town meeting is one, mm-hmm. which gets us into the charter and whether we want to make the charter in terms of the charter changes. And the other one is will there be the continuation of the relationship that exists between town side and school side under your tenure?
So I'm hoping that we can improve on the the relationships that we've had over the past few years, and they've been pretty solid these past few years, and I'm hoping to improve on that, even more. One of the first things that I did when I was elected in April was I sat down with the superintendent of schools, Margaret Rizzi, as well as the high school administration, just to introduce myself, talk about some of the challenges the town might have in the coming years, and really just to open the lines of communication to make sure that there is a good relationship between the town side and the schools. And right now, I would say it's a strong relationship, but there's if there's room for improvement, hopefully we can do that.
Now, with respect to I raised about the looking at the charter, even if
Sure.
and almost because again, the charter issue was brought up with respect to the Michael Hartman situation, and also just my own concern that quite frankly, I'm not sure that town meeting is the best form of government that we should continue to have.
Yeah.
But that's my own personal view. But
Sure.
Nonetheless, I believe that falls under the purview of the Board of Selectmen with respect to the Charter Commission.
Sure.
I believe that's where it is. It's either there or it's either with the moderator. I can't remember
Sure.
what the charter says. But in any event, will there be a review of the charter?
Sure. Well, and again, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but at this moment, there's no plans to look at that. Me personally, while sometimes I find town meeting to be a little frustrating, but at the same time, it does give a voice to basically anybody that wants it, so long as you go through the process of becoming a town meeting representative. I will say,
but it's the same 10.
It's
the same 10. The other.
That's true, and
that's what makes it unworkable.
That's true, but right now there's no plans for the board to review the charter or to propose a new form of government. There's no plans that I'm aware of, and maybe some of the other selectmen feel differently, and maybe they'll voice that in the coming meetings that we're going to have, and if that is something that they're interested in, I hope they bring it up. Selectman O'Regan, who's the new chair, he's already made it perfectly clear to this board that whatever we want on the agendas, he's not going to fight us on that, which is something that caused quite a bit of tension, with the previous 3 members of the board. He's perfectly fine with dissenting voices, and if there's an issue that a selectman wants to bring up, he's perfectly fine scheduling it, which is it's nice to see.
I'm taking this opportunity to raise my issues as well. So,
Sure.
and appropriately so, I have the vice chairman of the Board of Selectmen here, so I want to put a few more issues on there.
Sure.
They may be ones that you're considering, but at least we'll have it in the public purview.
Yeah.
One is the town beautification. I mean, one of the things that was always of concern to me as I went around the town is, folks would have the pods out there for years. They park boats in the driveway, things of that nature. I don't know what we're doing relative to the zoning. I know that Chairman O'Regan is very much concerned about the zoning issues. And then the other one for me is Route 27. I mean, we had talked about a number of things of the water connections and all of that may help Campanelli Drive and things of that nature, Campanelli Park. What's the thinking, any discussions? Because not much went on over the past earlier months on any of these issues, but
Sure.
what's going on now?
Sure. So, in terms of maybe zoning enforcement, it's really important that we have adequate staff at Town Hall who can dedicate more of their time just to zoning enforcement issues. The staff that we have now, they do a commendable job, but I think that there's room to bring on additional staff to make sure that we don't have unlicensed cars at properties or unlicensed dwellings, etc. So maybe just in terms of increasing our staffing in that department, maybe that will help.
And the other one was Route 27. Any further?
Yeah.
I know there was a report done by the engineer, and maybe some 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. So our town engineer, Mark Tisdale, I spoke to him about this a few weeks ago, and I believe he's still working with one of our consultants to propose some new funding methods that might be able to. We might be able to extend sewage at sort of a cheaper cost, and this was if we hook up from the Brockton side. It would require less pumps, and it would be a cheaper construction. So I think that's something that our consultant is looking at now, and it might be able to solve some of that the sewage issues relatively cheaper. I think they were looking at, I want to say it was maybe 1/8 of the cost of extending the Stoughton line and instead hooking up on the Brockton side. So we should have, I think, some recommendations to hopefully move on in the coming months.
I had in here at a program recently the Friends of Stoughton Center. And if you watch that program, you will see that I was pushing both town government to support them as well as the Chamber of Commerce. So,
yeah.
In turn, I may have to go the back roads in order to get home. But the reality is that private group, their 501c3, are doing your person's work in getting that done. What do you feel that the municipal government can do more for them? For they were talking about things such as trying to hang up the lights and watering the plants that are there. I'm looking at it and saying, well, these are things that DPW can help do with some sockets that were out. We have the capability within town. They're serving a town purpose there in the center. Do you think that connection could be made a little better with the town helping the Friends of Stoughton Center?
Sure. Not only increasing the connection with DPW and that group, but even expanding that group to maybe even the entire town. I know a lot of communities have a beautification committee that serves the entire community, and that aren't just focused right on the downtown. And I know that there are some other areas of our town, that could use it. I know that one thing that, Selectman O'Regan and I have discussed is just, as silly as this sounds, even the need for more businesses around town just to increase their green space and plant more trees. As silly as that is,
Oh, it's not silly.
just by planting, additional trees on Route 138, it changes the entire makeup of that entire corridor. So I know that that's something that I plan on looking into these next couple of months and possibly finding some grants that we could do that with net savings to the taxpayers.
Well, that was definitely one of my pet observations, having visited Alexandria, Virginia, where they bought the trees, and you have Tree Line Street that has a whole different character.
Yeah.
But, Mr. Vice Chairman, we're coming down to the close of the program, 2+ minutes, and I've dominated in terms of asking all the things I wanted to speak about. But is there any closing comments you would like to make, things you'd want to bring up to our viewing audience?
Sure. Well, you know, these past couple of months have been, they've obviously been contentious. You know, any recall election is going to be like that, unfortunately, and now it's time that the election's in our rearview mirror. It's time we come together as a community, and I'm looking forward to working with the new board members. And if there are any sort of citizens that are interested in reaching out and providing comments, providing questions, I know I'm always happy to hear from citizens, and I think the other selectmen are as well. And you know, this is sort of right before the holiday and Christmas season, and I just want to take this opportunity to wish our residents Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, and whatever holiday it is that you're celebrating this time of year. I hope you enjoy yourself and your time with family. And this is really personally my favorite time of the year, because it's right around the new year, and it's a time of sort of new beginnings. And I think we have an opportunity here in Stoughton for the same. As we go into the new year, we have a new Board of Selectmen, and I'm looking forward to serving the residents of our community.
Well, I want to add my, as well, I want to first thank you for appearing here on our program that we planned much earlier than before the election. But I also want to thank our viewing audience who has supported Community Forum. This may be one of the last shows that I'll be doing for this calendar year. So I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and a joyous and safe New Year.